Hey, so this is History K, and part of K Reviews. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read you something, some documentary type thing. So here we are. So this first page is Summer and Akkad, as you can see. So, the first experiments in empire building from the evolution of city-states. In Mesopotamia, each city-state concentrated wealth and power into the hands of one person as never before. But there was competition between them. The result was war, to which the only answer second seemed to be more war, driven by the dream of a supreme victor imposing peace. But waging war and imposing lasting peace were two different things. So remember that. Inventing the state. Before about 6000 BCE, no one had settled the delta created by the Tigris and the Euphrates, which the Greeks were later to call Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, and which is now Iraq. There was a little here to attract hunters and gatherers of wild food, and even less to attract the first farmers working the surrounding hillsides. They needed rain for their crops, but in the Mesopotamian valley, there was hardly any rain. Instead, there was two rivers that flooded the region every spring, created a temporary swampland destined only to bake dry and crack in the scorching heat. But the silt from the two rivers produced a light soil, that which was easy to work in a temporary swampland, in a time around 5000 BCE. By the way, for those of you who don't know what BCE, it's before Christ's existence. Anyway, back to what I was saying. The riverbanks of the far south had become dotted with villagers. The villagers shared a common culture and named the region Sumer. What made life in Sumer possible was cooperation. There was more than enough water in the rivers to make up for the lack of rainfall, but to make cultivation possible, it had to be controlled. Dikes were needed to prevent flooding. Then a network of irrigation channels had to be dug to bring river water to the crops. Constructing and maintaining dikes and ditches was a huge understanding that demands a great and ongoing collective effort. But irrigation yielded but big enough harvests for stores of surplus food to be built up, which made taxation possible. An administrator was chosen to oversee a single irrigation system, connecting several villages. He organized work teams and collected taxes to pay for maintenance work in the form of a percentage agricultural produce. The administrator's village grew larger and more wealthy than its neighbors, becoming the center for local trade as well as taxation. It became a city-state controlling a group of satellite villages and their fields. Between 4000 and 3000 BCE, dozens of such city-states established themselves throughout Sumer. As you can see here, this is a stone of the Enantium of Lagash leads his troops in the city of Umma in a dispute concerning irrigation, ca. 2450 BCE. Enantium was one of the several Sumerian rulers who moved toward controlling the whole of Sumer in the period between Gilgamesh and Sargon. These were societies of the size and complexity of hitherto unknown, brought into being by efficient management without keeping track of whom owned what to whom. The latticework of relationships supporting the economy would collapse. Luckily, the land between the rivers had no shortage of clay, and a series of marks made by the end of a reed pressed into a wet clay tablet created a permanent record when the clay dried. From these beginnings, the Sumerians invented writing and recorded history. So, as of 2450 BCE, these are the battles that took place, and the war is starting. And the war has continued. On and on, nonstop.
State responded by choosing a war leader. By the way, this chapter is war, if I forgot to mention. Sorry about that. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Who used the public coffers to equip and train an army and build a city wall behind which everyone could hide. But the raiding parties kept coming. It became obvious that collective action beyond city-state level was called for. So the war leaders of several cities met in the city of Nippur. City-state level was called for, so the war leaders of several cities met in the city of Nippur and formed a league to defend all of Sumer against outsiders. Impromptu raids after the formation of the Nippur League, they largely died away. Deprived of a common enemy, however, Sumer's city-states found cooperation more difficult. Each of the big cities now had a well-equipped army, and a military commander reluctant to hand power back to the peacetime administrator. There was always an excuse for conflict in Sumer because land and water had to be so carefully managed. There was also more to be gained from ongoing where was I? From ongoing to war against the wealthy city, then a raiding party, especially those who they now contained stashes of luxury goods. The surplus produced by irrigation farming was able to support new social classes. Insistent raiding had pushed many to leave the land for a safer life within the city walls, where they became potters and weavers in the employ of new business class. These merchants were keen to trade pots and textiles upriver for materials Sumer lacked, in particular copper and gold from Anatolia. So the rich became richer, and Sumer's cities acquired expensive jewelry, precious artifacts, and weapons made of bronze. And now Sumer's war leaders began to fight each other for the booty, using the spoils of war to increase their personal power. For hundreds of years, Sumer was torn apart by endemic warfare. Out of the exploits of its warrior kings grew the epic stories of Sumer's Age of Heroes. By ca. 2650 to ca. 2550 BCE, the most famous of whom was Gilgamesh of Uruk. After sacking Kish, foremost city of the time, Gilgamesh took the title of King Kish. Though he was still king and a powerful king in Sumer at any one time, now the object of these intercity wars began to shift. Plunder became less attractive than the goal of subduing enough cities to put an end to the fighting in interests of peace and prosperity. Around 2400 BCE, the king of Ur succeeded in uniting his city with his own rival, Uruk, and then taking Kish, thereby bringing pretty much the whole of the lower Euphrates under his control. A later king of Umma, Lugal Zage C, ca. 2295 to ca. 2271 BCE, conquered Lagamesh. Umma's old rival on the Tigris inherited control of Uruk and sacked Kish once more, making almost all of the cities on both rivers his. Sumer seemed to be edging towards the formation of a larger state, but Zugal Zage C had not reckoned with Sargon. But that is the end. Alright, so that is the end of this video. I'd like to thank you all for watching this. And if you're wondering where to get this book, it's called Atlas of Empires, The World's Great Powers of Ancient Times to Today by Peter Davidson. It's a good book for history. Anyway, don't forget to comment, share, subscribe, and make sure when you comment it's down below. Thank you. As always, thank you for watching, and drop me one of these. This is a like, one of these. Anyway, thank you. Bye.